Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. It's always my pleasure to review books from the Legal Action Group, the Access to Justice charity. They are of special importance, I think, to all barristers, certainly of my vintage, and I think a lot of judges, because of the huge amount of information that is provided in their relatively cheap publications, the huge amount of work that has gone in, learning and content to all of the books, and it makes our lives a lot easier as practitioners. It's also another very important fact to bear in mind, that the publications from Legal Action Group are actually simple to read, generally speaking, because the subject matter isn't. And I do think these books are very important for unrepresented parties, who make up a very large number of people in court today. Now, what I'm looking at this morning is a book which we've reviewed before. It's the Court of Protection Handbook, now actually in a second edition. It's the user's guide. It was very highly, strongly recommended by Sir James Mumby when the first edition came out, and this new edition has been made available because of changes that have taken place. The authors are Alex Ruck-Keene, Kate Edwards, Professor Anselm Eldergill and Sophie Miles. And as I've indicated, the book's available as a book and an e-book. I do find the e-books difficult because it's very difficult to cross-refer the way we do with an ordinary book, but perhaps I'm a bit old-fashioned. Elizabeth and I talked about the book, and our title for the review we've written is Cutting Edge Experience for Every Practitioner and Lay User of This Court, with apologies to Sir William Clark. I'll get on to that in a minute. Here's the book anyway. It's a nice blue cover. It's a heavy book and it's a paperback. There's the spine, and then there is the back, and there's a lot of detail on the back, which you can see. You can see there's a shaded portion. The shaded portion, of course, is where the actual legislation is. What you've got right at the back of the book, and of course appendices. What you've got right at the back of the book is the index. The index is by paragraph numbering, not page numbering, so you'll find things pretty easily. It's not a big index, but it's sufficient, I think. This is the website which I'll refer to. It's courtofprotectionhandbook.com, and it's very useful because it's updating all the time what is happening. Then there's the front page. I do think with a lot of these books today we are getting a website to go with the book to keep people up to date with changes, because obviously the book takes a long time to print, and therefore you do need to know any changes. There's the detail about the book there, and then this is the foreword by Clark, Sir William Clark, Vice President of the Court of Protection. That's the foreword to the first edition, which Mumby welcomes as not to be expected as a first-class book. Then there's the main preface there. Then you've got the contents section with the authors, detail about the authors, and then the contents section is there, separating the book out. It tells you right at the beginning how the book is structured, which I think is always worth reading if this is new to you. But as I say, LAG are trying very hard with these books to assist everybody as a user. There are a total of 27 chapters and 7 appendices, and then the index. And then you launch into the book itself after the table of cases. Then of course you've got the statutory instruments, the statutes, the statutory instruments there. Then you've got a little bit of table of codes of practice and practice guidance, which I think is also helpful. And then you've got a very useful abbreviations section. Again, quite important, because there are a lot of abbreviations in this area, some of which you'll be very familiar with, and others sometimes it's useful to just have a little reminder. Now you see with the chapters that each chapter has a little index right at the front, so you should be able to find things, and it starts off with the scheme of the book. You can see the structure. The paragraph numbering is at the side here. As you're looking at it, it's on the left-hand side. Then there is footnoting, and that's how it runs through. There's There are quite a lot of boxed sections as well, of course. I mean, that's the book. It runs to something like 860 odd pages. Quite a heavy book, actually. And like all of them, I'm afraid they're expanding because of the nature of what's happening and, of course, the case law and all the other things, rules that are coming in. I have to say, on behalf of everybody, I'm sure, it's time it did call a bit of time on the extent of some of the rules, because these books are just expanding all the time, and there is no way that people can understand everything that's in these sorts of books. So therefore, give a thought to ordinary people, because at the end of the day, we've got to try and understand what the rules are, because ignorance of the rules is just no excuse. Frankly, it should be, but it isn't, and that's the way it is. But that's an argument for the jurisprudent. Now, what do we say about this book? Well, it's a very useful handbook, as I've said, and I think it's one of the most important practitioner works for any person involved in the work of the Court of Protection, now that it's reached its second edition, published, of course, by the estimable Legal Action Group. And in around 850 odd pages, it gives excellent detail on the practice and processes of the Court of Protection across a whole range of its work. That is, in language which is aimed not only at lawyers but also to the large number of people who have become involved in proceedings before the Court of Protection without any form of legal assistance. An all too common problem facing the court system in recent years. And I pay tribute to Legal Action Group for giving us a tremendous amount of assistance in what is a really difficult area. Welfare law as a whole is an area that does not attract a lot of attention, but we do need this sort of work from expert practitioners, and that's what we're getting with LAG. Now, as Sir William Clark rightly observes in the foreword he's written, the book is based on the cutting-edge experience of the work of the Court of Protection, its practice, and the changes that have been and are being made to the rules. And he concludes that it follows that the guidance given by this handbook has an informed and solid foundation. Absolutely. It's a sage statement, if ever there was one, and completely right for all LAG publications as well, because they're invaluable to the practitioner and the judiciary, in my view. The benefit of this book for users is that, as Clark says, the guidance imparted in the text is given in language and through a format that is designed to and should assist all users of the Court of Protection. Of course, some of the process and the legislation are complex, but as Sir William states, it's a useful and practical guide to their application, and so as a result, that helps family, friends, public authorities and the court to identify what is the subject of the proceedings' best interest, in other words, the individual's best interest, or P, as he is referred to in the book, or she. The book starts with an overview of the Mental Capacity Act 2005 and the Court of Protection before taking a step-by-step guide through the processes of preparation and making an application. Funding and representation issues are covered. Also preparing for and appearing at hearings. It's a special type of jurisdiction. Evidence issues, costs, enforcement and appeals. So you've got all the usual pieces of information you'll be looking for. The handbook's comprehensive yet accessible to all with 27 chapters and 7 appendices. It is a big book, but there again, these are matters which are governed by rules, and you do have to have a pretty substantial understanding of how the system actually works. Complex issues, we think, are explained succinctly and clearly, again, hallmarks of all LAG titles, and with an excellent use of tables and other diagrams. The second edition includes what we found to be very helpful flowcharts on property and affairs, health and welfare and DOLS applications. So as I say, you have a wide range of issues covered. As is to be expected then, there is splendid practical guidance throughout, which is provided on facilitating the role of P, that's the subject of the proceedings, and the role of experts in the court, with contributions from a psychiatrist and an independent consultant nurse. And I think that these contributions are particularly helpful for practitioners in our view. Now, the body of the text is supported by a wealth of directly relevant materials, including legislation, the consolidated rules and pilot rules, guidance, sample statements and letters and useful addresses, a boon for the unrepresented and the lay person. There's also the website, which I mentioned. It's right at the front of the book, and do have a look at it. I've got to be careful with the review because of the problems with URLs, but it's Court of Protection Handbook.com, which of course is well worth viewing. It goes with the book, containing updates on practice and procedure and additional legislation, guidance and resources, which of course is to be expected, as the standard house style adopted by LAG does, of course, in our view, find favour with us, of course, with lawyers generally, and with the judiciary. And we really would find our jobs, I think, much more difficult to do without these handbooks. So thank you, LAG, and your brilliant authors, and I'll mention them all: Alec Ruck-Keene, Kate Edwards, Professor Anselm Eldergill, and Sophie Miles. I know how much work goes into writing these books, and I'm very grateful to all of you for what you've produced. The law is as stated at the 1st of November 2016. Let's just have another quick look at the book. There it is. The front, it's quite a heavy book actually. Spine and then the back. There's a lot of detail actually on the back cover. You can, if I just come up to the camera a bit nearer, you can see there's a lot of information, some of which I've quoted from in the review. And as I say, you've got the shaded area for the appendices, the 7 of them. Let's have a look. Making an application, property and affairs cases. You can see, just opening it in the middle, the basic information is there. You've got paragraph numbering, you've got the footnoting, and you've got P. P is the person. P is the person who's being dealt with. And so throughout they use the word P, and I think that helps. It's a lovely book. It's a very difficult jurisdiction, this one, but it's a lovely book to have, and I treasure all of the LAG books. They are very important to me as a practitioner. I know that they are for many other people. So thank you very much again to everybody involved in this publication. Bye-bye.